Hey, what's going on, Internet? Welcome to a special weekend edition of Duels of the Saltwalkers. And today we are going to get experimental with the mono red control / burn deck. So I actually, kind of just whipped this up, not like an hour ago, but I whipped it up last night and I worked it in a little bit today. So again, this is a definite work in progress, very experimental, and we'll see how it goes based on, the guy who played Armillary Spears and Sphinx-Bone wands against me in a mono red shell. So real quick, going through the list, got 2 Banefires, 4 Shocks, 3 Hellspark Elementals, 1 Volcanic Geyser, 1 Skullcrack, 2 Anger of the Gods, 4 Seismic Strike, 4 Resounding Thunder, 4 Bolt of Keranos, 4 Pitchburn Devils, you're seeing that correctly, 1 Inferno Titan, 4 Armillary Spears, 2 Sphinx-Bone wands, and 24 Mountains. So, again, why I wanted to make the deck, the 4 Armillary Spears, which I actually thought were a pretty good inclusion in a mono red deck of this style, because you do have a lot of cards that scale, like the 2 Banefires, the 1 Volcanic Geyser, the 4 Seismic Strikes, and then you also, it's basically, it's a 4-mana divination that always draws you lands. But again, with a bunch of spells that want to scale, like you want more lands in play, I think it's actually pretty good. And also, it guarantees you at least 2 land drops, so I actually want to see this in pretty much every opening hand. This is like the most important card you want to see, in my opinion. We have the 2 Sphinx-Bone wands, which, allow us to burn the opponent out, and, conveniently enough, it is a very poor out, but it is a out to a Master of Waves. So let's count how many spells we have with the Bone Wand. We have 2, 6, 7, 8, 10, 14, 18, 22. So 22 triggers for the Bone Wand. I think that's, fairly decent. Now the thing with mono red, going with this strategy, you want to try and find, card advantage where you can. So, Sphinx-Bone wand is technically card advantage. Once you got it down, you cast a spell, then it starts, doing its thing. It scales up. Armillary Spear, obviously card advantage. Inferno Titan is technically card advantage in a way. I mean, you're going to get, if it resolves, you get the 3 damage to Arc Lightning, no matter what, even if it gets immediately removed. The 4 Pitchburn Devils, which is, I guess, the experimental part of the deck. If it resolves, as long as it doesn't get exiled, it's going to do at least 3 damage to something. So, it can hold off a 6 toughness dude, at least a 3/6, and kill it. So you can card advantage, have Anger of the Gods, that usually nets you at least, 2 cards for 1, hopefully more. There is a little bit of, not a little bit, there is negative synergy between the Devils and the Anger, but that usually doesn't come up too often. And, if it does come up, then there's probably a very good reason why you did that. And, losing out on the 3 damage of the Pitchburn Devils is not going to be that big a deal compared to, why you're casting the Anger. And then you have Hellspark, which is usually good for, 6 damage. So, 6 damage on 1 card, that's the card advantage there for red. And outside of that, there's really, it's hard to get too much card advantage out of red, which is why it's hard to build just a straight burn deck, because the cards really aren't that efficient. Like, if you watch, Paper Magic, like a modern burn deck, or, a legacy burn deck, those cards are so much more efficient. They got Goblin Guides, they got Rift Bolts, they got all sorts of crazy shit, Lightning Bolts. And then, so, as far as our scaling cards, you got the Banefire. I always like to have 1 Volcanic Geyser. I remember this from when I played Dodge and Burn. I always played 1 Volcanic Geyser, end of turn Geyser them, and then untap Banefire them. You can usually catch them for a lot of damage out of nowhere that they're not expecting. So just as a one of, and can go to creatures. As you can see, pretty much all these cards, with the exception of the Skullcrack and the 3 Hellspark elementals, can go to creatures as well. But on the flip side, your 2 Anger of the Gods and your 4 Seismic Strikes only go to creatures. So, but, your Thunders, your Bolt Keranoses, your Shocks, Geysers, Banefires, you can choose whether to go to the dome with them or, control the board with them. So I wanted to, build a deck that pretty much blanked my opponent's removal, which is why, I'm not running the staples, Kiln Fiend, Gutter Snipe, Rabble Master, whatever. I mean, a card like Gutter Snipe, can be good, but, you're spending 3 mana and maybe you're getting 2 damage out of that card. You're not even guaranteed anything. So we always want, some amount of guaranteed damage, with our cards, or something that'll just control the board. So that's why I took those out. And you're blanking most of your opponent's removal. Like, even if they kill an Inferno Titan, you're still getting that 3 damage. I mean, it's painful, but Titan also is, one of those auto win cards. So I think it'd be a mistake to not include him. Like I said, even Pitchburn Devils, if they remove him, he's doing 3. And they will have to leave back guys to block, and even if they trade, he's still going to do 3 damage no matter what. And as far as like Resounding Thunder, we're not going to have access to the cycling on Thunder, just because that Jund colors. I mean, I could put in some Savage lands, but that's going to take at least 2, splash lands to cycle that. So I'll take that hit or whatever. But really, with a deck like this, you really have to use your life total as a resource. You can't just immediately shock every little thing you see. And yeah, it's kind of tricky. I don't know if it's, I mean, I've tested it. I played a bunch of games against the Abzan life gain deck with it. And, I mean, even though it's the AI piloting it, as I was testing, I took over half the games against it. And I actually had it resolve 3 Lone Missionaries and 1 Palaka Worm, and I still was able to fight through it, but mostly because of it didn't have removal for Inferno Titan. So there you go, I win. But yeah, so we're going to get experimental here. Like I said, mostly you see the 4 Pitchburn Devils and hardly any other creatures. I actually at one point did have 4 Goblin Arsonists in there, but to take care of stuff like Young Pyromancer, but it was pretty awful, and it was like one of the most awful top decks you can see. And only go at 24 lands. Like I said, we have 4 Armillary Spears, so I think 24 lands is fine. I was as high as 25, but I was starting to flood out a lot. I ran all 3 Skullcracks. I actually, at one point, dropped down to 2 Devils to run all 3 Skullcracks, but it just really wasn't that great, because, it only does one thing, maybe 2 things, Does the 3 damage and maybe blocks, some life gain. But, you can fight through some amount of life gain with this deck. Especially, if you get the Bone Wand rolling or whatever. And, once you get, 5-6 mana, I mean, these Seismic Strikes are going to kill pretty much everything in the game. And so, yeah, so that's the idea behind it. A burn/control deck. More of a control deck than a burn deck. But enough cards to burn them out, since really it's what we're going to do. So I'm actually going to, when I do the gameplay video with this, it'll actually be the first time against an actual human playing this deck. So yeah, nothing much else to be said. I mean, like I said, we left out most of the creatures that, aren't going to do anything when they enter the battlefield, in an attempt to stymie or just make our opponent's removal basically worthless. But there's really not much else. I mean, some people like running treason effects as a gotcha, but like, against token decks and shit like that, they're worthless. Devils, I mean, it's good, but you're not guaranteed to get anything out of it. Like, I want to get, when I play a card, I at least want to get something out of it. I actually toyed with this, but, that's so easily, like, broken up. And, 6 mana Lava Axes. I mean, yes, I want to burn people out, but That's a bit much. And really, there's nothing else. So I'm going to take this to the lobbies very shortly. Stay tuned. And if you're one of the 2 people that actually watch Deck Techs, thanks. See you soon.